That's fine.
Welcome to The Other Dimension with the team Damon Penny, Ben Winfield, and Louisa Brown. We guide you through the supernatural, the occult, and the unexplained, answering questions that will make you question your grip of reality, with special guests guiding you through everything from demons to divination, cryptids to crystals, religion to skeptics. We explore in depth the true meaning of the unexplained. So strap in, kick back, and enjoy as we enter the other dimension.
Oh God, I'm not even in the frame. What a donut. Hi everybody. Welcome to this week's The Other Dimension. I'm your host, Lord Damon of the Realm, as it says at the bottom there, aka the Paranormal Viking. Welcome along. Shouts out to everyone locked in. Sorry I'm a couple of minutes late. I was enjoying dinner with the other half and it was amazing. So a couple of things to get through. We've got to do some house cleaning before we actually get to the show. This week we'll be talking about the apparition that Louisa and Ben found while they were out investigating. I want to talk through that because I thought that's quite a sticking point. But yeah, a couple of house cleaning things. The new merchandise will be available very soon. We got the confirmation through, and we're just waiting for the free trials coming through for myself, Ben, and Lou. I had to order XL because I'm getting big, so games and all that lot. So yeah, we got that. Also, I've got to send a special birthday shout out to two very special little girls today. And that's about it for that one. Don't forget, we have our affiliates and our sponsors here on the show. If you want to check them out, they are as follows.
Welcome to the Other Dimension Network, exploring the unexplained, in partnership with Embrace the Dark, Paranormal Science Beyond the Grave, Haunted Museum and Spirit Shop, Stoke. And lock in to our other shows: The Witch's Closet with Scarlet Witch, Divination with Louisa Brown, Occult, History, and Science with Ben and Lou. Only on the Other Dimension Network.
And those all are affiliates and partners here at the Other Dimension. The Scarlet show will be postponed for a little while due to some personal reasons. Big shout out to Scarlet Witch. She will be back, so make sure you check that one out. Right, let's do a roll call. Shouts out to Nico. How you doing? Shouts out to the YouTube crew. Shouts out to Annette. How you doing, Annette? Welcome along. And to Zira. Big shouts out to you. And shouts out to our resident questioner, our resident master questioner, out to Kate, locked in all the way over there in the US of the A. So, tonight. Now, I don't know if you guys actually saw the live. I didn't. I was busy last weekend. I was on holiday, which went really well, by the way. Ben and Lou went live. I'm not sure where from, but I did see the picture that Hugh being caught on the live stream, and I think it's really interesting. Guys, let me know if you've actually seen it. Now, from what I can tell, it's definitely not a refraction of light. That's something that definitely didn't happen. I do feel that it is, and not just because it's something that we caught here on the channel. I do think it's very close to a great bit of evidence. Obviously, it's got to be run through a few like sort of what they call it, filters and stuff like that, just to make sure that it's not a secondary light source or some form of camera lens flare or refraction. Big shout out to Jeanette. Welcome along. Yeah, so just got to like run it through it, but I do believe it is something that I do believe it's paranormal. If I'm honest about it. Let me know if you've actually seen it in the chat room, guys. It's a really good bit of evidence. It looks like a woman to me. Yeah, it's the picture on the Other Dimension page. Yeah, it was caught live on a live stream. One of the listeners that were locked in actually caught it and put the timestamp on there, and Ben and Lou pulled it off. Who I think might be on tonight. I'm not sure. They're at Bill Sith. I think it's Bill Sith Viking event this weekend, Strongman and Viking event. So I think they're just setting up the tent. So I don't know if they'll actually be on tonight. It might just be me again. I promised Kate one day you can host it. Yeah, that'll be a cool one. We'll have Kate and Nico on, and that'll be quite a cool little show. So it looks female to me. Now, the reason I say that is from my years of searching for the paranormal, I always found that when you deal with energies, when you're out on investigation, males seem to be quite blocky. They seem to be like more sort of edge shapes, whereas females sort of present quite curved and quite what they call it, full and round. So I believe it's female. Zara says, think it's the guardian of the cemetery keeping an eye out and saying politely away, just watching. Don't think it's anything sinister. I don't think it's anything sinister at all. Cemetery guardian could be. We've had a discussion on the show before. We talk about, been asked the question before, if cemeteries are a great place to do paranormal investigations, and my answer to that is no. I do believe cemeteries are. You've got to think about it in the sense of, in the sense of the definition of a spirit. You know, you're talking about the soul of a person that's left the meat suit. You know, the body. Would you, in your own personal preference, want to go back and revisit the place in which you was buried? No, I don't think so. But yeah, there are such things as guardians of the cemetery. There's a really famous one in Highgate Cemetery in central London that perceives itself as a sort of version of Jack the Ripper. It's a man in a long black cape and a top hat. And yeah, I've done the Ghost Walk through London, and there's some really cool stories about the cemetery garden of Highgate, which is really cool. So yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that one, Zero. Definitely. I'm not 100% sure if it's a guardian. Normally, if we're talking about cemetery guardians, they're gifted with a lot of energy, so they would probably show more solid, less transparent. That's my belief anyway when it comes to that sort of thing. To me, it seems like, from what I watch, well, from the picture that I see, because I haven't watched it, I need to go back and watch it. I was supposed to do that. The idea was to get over here a little bit earlier and watch it, but I didn't get a chance because there was a crash on the M11. So, but from the picture that I've seen, to me, it's almost like a wandering soul. I wouldn't go down the realms of the Fae or any sort of sinister dimensional creature. I'd probably go some sort of wandering soul. Zero says, think it would make sense as the person who stood at the top of the grave slab, possibly keeping an eye on her to make sure she doesn't get up to anything she shouldn't be doing. But that's only my opinion. I know I'm not ruling out that it could be a cemetery guardian. I'm not ruling that out. At the end of the day, I have no explanation to what it is. All I know is to me, it looks like an apparition, and it looks like something that it piqued my interest. I see it pop up in my comment section on my Facebook. Bear in mind, I rarely go on Facebook. And it popped up, and I thought I'd have a look at it, and it blew me away a little bit. It's the first time we've actually got a bit of evidence where I feel it's a bit of a standout bit of evidence. It's something that sort of stands out. It's almost like, I don't know if you guys know the famous picture of the Grey Lady at Raynham Hall in Norfolk. Kate says, happy belated birthday, Damon. I hope you had a lovely birthday weekend last Sunday, right? Or am I completely out of it? No, you're correct. It was not Monday gone, the Monday before. But thanks for that. That's that. Yeah, there's a really famous picture of the Grey Lady of Raynham Hall in Norfolk. Now, this was taken, I think it was around about 15, 16 years ago. And it was taken at the bottom of the famous stairwell where the Grey Lady is said to walk. And as you can see in the picture, you see it come down the bottom, you can actually see the outline of her, and it's very, very dense as well. Even though you can see the stairs through her, it has a denseness to it, so it sort of rules out the fact of refraction of light. There's also another really famous story of an apparition being seen in central London in a theatre called Drury Lane. And then basically the whole cast of Oliver were on the stage, and the photographer was up on the, I can't remember what they're called, like the balcony, taking the picture of the cast on the stage. And at this point, behind him walked the Grey Man. I think it was the Grey Man or the Green Man, and he actually walked, and 47 of the cast of Oliver actually saw this apparition walk along. So it's definitely like a corroborated bit of evidence. Nico says, Emmy went to Cordoba, which is a province in Argentina, and she went to a hotel that apparently is haunted, and they spotted a ghost in one of the tours. I could post on the page if you want. Yes, Nico, that'd be great. That'd be great. See, what people don't realise nowadays is a lot of great paranormal evidence is sort of like pushed on one side because people take photos, like normal people, not investigators, or people go out like normal people. I'm not saying people that are completely obsessed with the paranormal and go out and investigate it, but normal people go on these tours and that. They take pictures and they just sort of write it off the top of their head. They sort of go, oh, it's nothing, you know, it's my camera's playing up, or it's a refraction of light, or it's dust particles and that. And they don't post them. And some of the amazing bits of evidence just go completely unnoticed because they never get shared. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, if you, it's in, what to mention, it's in a picture. Yeah. If you can post that on the Other Dimension page, that'd be great. I think I've allowed people to post on there now. I'm not sure. Or if you want to, Nico, add me on Facebook and send it to me, and I'll post it out there so everyone can see it. Because I've got admin rights on the page. I think we stopped people posting on there because when we first started doing this podcast, I started off as like the Demonologist UK, Ben come along and Lou joined in, and it became the Other Dimension, and we sort of peaked after about 6 or 7 months where we was hitting quite a lot of listeners. It was a new thing, people were really involved with it, and we had a lot of paranormal teams, and we had a lot of paranormal podcasts and people doing shows on Facebook that felt the need to post on our page to do advertisements. Now, we have nothing wrong with that. We've got no problems against advertisements on our page. We let people advertise all day long. But now, because we have affiliates and we have certain teams that we affiliate with, they should get, you know, oh, Nico, I just got your friend request. I'll add you afterwards. They sort of get precedence, and it was getting to a point where we was posting up our shows, and we're posting up advertisement for our shows, and you couldn't see them because of the amount of people that were posting. So it was almost like they call it like stealing and stuff like that. So we sort of like stopped it. Zira says Drury Lane is said to be where the Muffin Man, can't remember his real name, would lure kids with sweets and candy, sadly for them to be murdered by him. So it would make a lot of sense for sightings of spirits and ghosts. I've never heard that story. I've never heard the story of the Muffin Man. Have you heard of the Muffin Man? The Muffin Man. Yeah, no, I've not heard of that story. I grew up in London, spent a lot of time there, and I've never heard that story. So, Drury Lane is extremely haunted. It's one of the most haunted theatres in central London. Not because it's the oldest, because of there was a lot of what do they call it? You know, that superstitions where things were going wrong and stuff like that, and that sort of played a massive part in the hauntings there. So the way I look at Drury Lane is look, there has been sightings there, amazing sightings of people, and of ghosts and apparitions made by people, but I think the main story behind Drury Lane is that whole, Chinese whispers thing. Like, actors and stage actors have gone along with these, like, apparitions that they see that bring them good luck. There's actual stories of actors that have turned around and said that they were on stage in Drury Lane, they were doing like their act and that, and they forget their lines or they forget to be in a certain place, and an apparition or a hand moves them into the right position. It's supposed to be the old director that does it, so that's quite cool. I'm trying to think of some more famous apparitions apart from our one, obviously, on our page. Zero says one for Kate to look into is a nursery rhyme. Yeah, Kate loves a nursery rhyme. She really does. If you haven't checked that show out, it's in our archived on our page. The show that me and Kate done with nursery rhymes, that blew my mind. The craziest part about nursery rhymes is the fact of kids sing them and they don't realise what they actually mean, and it's really scary. The one that sort of stands out in my mind was the Ring of Roses being about the Black Plague. It's nuts. Other famous apparitions, let me think. Well, we obviously got the famous one at the Queen Mary that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago. That's not so much an apparition, that's the after effects of apparition. Now, within the Queen Mary, which is a really famous ship that's, I think, is docked at Boston Harbour, there is what was the first one to have a swimming pool in the bottom. They're all warning Georgie Porgy is a good one. Yeah, that's another good one. There is a swimming pool on the bottom deck of the Queen Mary, and it's said that the apparition of the little girl that drowned in there actually comes out of the pool, and as she walks along, she leaves wet footprints on the floor, and that has actually been seen and documented by pictures, and teams have gone there and actually seen that happening. So that's really, really good. Another great apparition story. I mean, guys, if you're in the chat room, if you've seen a spirit, let me know, because it'd be cool to sort of analyze it and go over it. Because we can look at things from different angles. You see, when it comes to the apparition that we found, or I say we found, that Ben and Lou found in, shouts out to Wild Bill, welcome along. The apparition that Ben and Lou found within the live, you can rule out a lot of things because of the denseness of it. You can see it almost alters the background behind it, so you can still see through the apparition or the spirit, but because of the denseness of the energy, you can almost see it like changing the background behind it. So when you look at it from that sense, it is an almost solid object. All right, Nico, no problem. I'll see if I can do that. I'm not technically gifted when it comes to Facebook. I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to that, so I'll see what I can do. If not, we'll get sent over to me and I'll post it up. So yeah, I mean, you can tell that it's not a refraction of light or any sort of, like, a hoax, because of the fact that it's created that density and thickness to it. So I mean, the thing that used to wind me up the most is when, I don't know if you guys ever watched Most Haunted, they used to say, orbs are the beginning manifestation of spirits. And I've never believed that. I mean, me and Ben have spoke about it before on the show. If a spirit is going to present itself as an orb or a light source, it would be created of energy or electromagnetic energy. So it would actually emit its own light. Now, a lot of the orbs that you see on Most Haunted and on these lives that are on Facebook and that, you can see they're refracting. So they're actually taking light away from another source. If a spirit is going to present itself in an orb or a light source, it would be creating its own light, not taking it from others. Do you know what I mean? So that's my belief on that anyway. There's a lot of people that will go against that. People say that it moved in a certain way, or it headed towards an opening, or it was following the path of what was laid out before. At the end of the day, if it's going to be a spirit that's presenting himself as a spiritual light or an orb, it would be emitting its own light source, not reflecting a a secondary or man-made light source. You know what I mean? So, but there are also filters you can use to rule that out. I used to use one called the thermo filter. You just put a thermo filter on it, and it would show you whether it was emitting its own heat source. And if the light was, if the orb was emitting its own heat source, it means it was creating its own light because it was creating its own energy. Energy is, which is normally generated and creates heat as a secondary product, doesn't it? So, wow, it's a deep conversation tonight. Yeah, so there are some. I think you have to be objective when you look at apparitions and spirits in general, especially. You have to be objective when you get evidence. You need to rule out every sort of plausible explanation, because the actual definition of paranormal is something that goes beyond normal explanation. So if you can find an 80 or even 70% chance that what you've caught can be explained through normal day-to-day activities, i.e., you constantly hearing banging, it could be the cooling down of pipes, it could be wood heating up and cooling down because it obviously grows and swells and then gets smaller as it gets cooler. If you can rule out all natural explanations and all plausible explanations for the evidence, it only leaves the explanation that it is paranormal. And that's the way I've always approached things when we've been out investigating, or when it comes to my demonology, or when it comes to cases that I've handled. I try to rule out plausible explanations. I always look at the first step. I always look at is, and it's quite an intrusive question in which I'm actually going to reveal how I do things, which is a first, because a lot of demonologists keep it to themselves, that's the way they work. But you know what? Bang it out there, who cares? So, if I have a case that comes across my table, my desk, the first thing I do is I ask very intrusive questions, because I want that person to feel uncomfortable. I want them to feel like they need to answer. So I always ask if they're on medication, if they have any background in mental health. I then ask intrusive questions like, do you believe in spirits? Do you come from a religious upbringing? Because all these lead me to sort of gauge the person's mental health, like to see if they're actually, because there are a lot of things that can cause you to have paranormal experience, i.e., you have hysteria, which is a build-up of fear over a long period of time. You also have the knock-on effect of people telling somebody that they're haunted or they're possessed, and then they start to believe that. It's almost a form of Munchausen syndrome. Do you know what I mean? There's other things. Fear in itself can create hallucinations. There are medical terminologies and medical things you can be diagnosed with that could cause hallucinations. Even something down to infrasound or EMF. If there is a spike in EMF, if you've got, I don't know, say your Alexa's playing up, or you've got an electrical equipment that's playing up, it can spike the EMF. And now there's been studies done by scientists and studies done by universities where they've actually shown that high spikes in infrasound and high spikes in EMF can even make you feel like you're being touched by unseen hands. So you have to start by ruling all that out. Then the next step, I'm going to get to those. I'm going to get to that zero. Don't worry, I'm not forgetting you. The next step after you've asked these intrusive questions, because you're almost like being a detective, you've got to find out the mental state, and you've got to find out how the person thinks to see if they've had that religious upbringing. It's not so much a bad thing, but it sort of points people towards the fact that they could be possessed more, because it's more acceptable. I know that seems weird because, as a Catholic, you're not supposed to believe in spirits and so on and so forth. But if you have that religious background, you're brought up around good and bad, and evil, and and angels and demons and that. So it's more plausible for you to believe that demons exist and that you're possessed. That's another question you have to ask. And once, obviously, you've asked all the intrusive questions, you then start analysing the evidence. There are telltale signs to let you know if a person is being haunted by an active spirit, a negative spirit, a positive spirit, or a demon, or some form of other entity. To be honest with you, I've probably had around about 62, 63 cases, and out of all of them, only one I've actually come across where it was demonic, and that was one that Ben sent me over, and we was working on it together. So it's not common practice. As much as we get these statistics released by the Vatican saying there was 256 exorcisms done within the year 2014, I don't see the evidence for that. You know, maybe I look at things differently, maybe I approach things differently. Don't get me wrong, you do get very, very shirty people who you will tell them that you're not possessed and that you're not being haunted by a demon or a negative entity, and they just don't believe you and they'll go elsewhere, you know. And it takes 2 or 3 of us to turn around and say it's not that, for them to actually then realise it. But once you've got and you've analyze the evidence and you're sort of like at a point where you think, okay, this could be, that's when you start the physical part of the investigation. You go and visit the person, you visit their surroundings, because there's things in their surroundings that can change the way in which they think. So 9 times out of 10, I'll go and do an EMF sweep of the house. I will look out for, I'll use an infrasound meter to see what sort of decibels are being emitted throughout the house. I will look at the wiring in the house. I will look at the boiler, because all these things do, you have to, like I said to you, you have to rule out all the plausible explanations before you get to the main one. I better get to this comment before I forget it. Zira says, I remember the house I grew up in. A spirit I called Joseph used to reside in my bedroom and would wander the top of the stairs. I wouldn't let it drop, so my mum looked into history of the local area, the street and the house we lived in opposite a church. Junior school, Nightingale Junior, was a makeshift hospital. Turns out Joseph hung himself on the banister of the stairs. I think I also mentioned on a previous show the old next door neighbour found a gravestone at the bottom of the garden. Bottom of the garden, which is in. Oh, we've stopped. Dion Fortune said that there is a fine line between mental illness and being a medium or experiencing various paranormal things. Yeah, there is a very fine line. There is an extremely fine line. I've spoke to my other half about it. The fact of when you actually look at mediums in general and you actually look at the symptoms they perceive, you know, seeing people that are not there, hearing voices not there, having images implanted in their brains or in their minds and using their subconscious. Technically, there are mental illness for that. You look at schizophrenia. You could be schizophrenic. You can be immediately be schizophrenic. So as much as there are these ways in which you can incredibly rare due to building regs, etc. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, I don't know how I'd feel if I went to the bottom of my garden and found a gravestone. I think that would, I think that'd be a selling point for me. I'd have to get out. Yeah, so there's a very thin line between the mental illness and mediumship. There's, you said about Dion Fortune there. What was his name? Is it Karl Marx? Famous philosopher? I think he said something along the lines of, and I'm just paraphrasing here, he said, to wander into oneself is to express your own mind and your own mental stability. So that was sort of, yeah, that does sort of explain what you're saying. Nico said, and about the picture, Emily told me to tell you that it was taken by a group of professors that went to the hotel, but it was closed, so they took a picture outside, and the picture is analysed. So, okay, that's cool. That's cool. What you got to remember is also it's been analysed by professors. They are trained to look at things through a scientific eye, through an evidence-based eye. So it's good. She said, so it's not fake. Trisha says that you have to check out Cordoba because it has a great energy. I mean, I'd love to. I don't have a passport at the moment, so I can't leave the country. I'm under Great British house arrest. So, yeah. Yeah, it sounds quite cool. There are a lot of places in the world that emit like these weird energies. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of a place. I think it's in Chile called Pima Punka. That's the one where it's got the mountains with the flat tops and it's got all the buildings big there. People say it's Mayan buildings, but I don't think so. I think it sort of predates Mayan architecture, if I'm honest with you. So there are some places that stand out. I mean, when I was younger, I went to a place called Ephesus. It's an old Roman ruin, and the energy there was just crazy. It made you feel really, really mad. She said there's a lot of UFOs, ghosts, and it's in like an energetic triangle, so a lot of crazy things happen there. So sort of almost like a Bermuda Triangle. Vanished civilizations also. Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's been some evidence brought up, I think it was like last week, about the whole Khazarian race. And the era of Tartaria. Oh, hello, Jim. Oh, hello. Just come get involved, eh? Yeah, there's the whole thing of Tartaria, which was like literally a forgotten civilization that was sort of pre-descendants of Attila the Hun. The Khazarians were the royal family that run that, and it's I mean, I'm not an expert on it. I've only read into it, and I wouldn't try to sort of second guess what it is. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's causing a stir in the conspiracy world at the moment. So, but yeah, going on the fact of like, I got asked a really cool question a little while ago from a friend of mine at work. He's a mechanic, and he said to me, he said, if you believe when we pass away, you move on and you become a spirit, the amount of history we have before us, wouldn't that mean that the world would be completely overpopulated with spirits? And it got me thinking, because obviously I'm not very religious. I'm Norse. I believe in, but when you look at things from any sort of perspective, whether you look at it from Norse or you look at it from Mayan, Egyptian, Roman, Catholic, Christian, or any of the Abrahamic, he always talks about souls and spirits being able to move on. If you look at it from the Norse side, you know, you get told that when you pass away, you will dine with your ancestors in the halls of Valhalla. You know, so it's your spirit leaving this plane and moving on to the next plane. There's always that talk in every single religion. There's always that talk of a separate plane in which spirits move on to. So looking at it in that sense, it wouldn't be overpopulated, because there are certain spirits that will move on to that next plane, that other dimension, that place where they are at peace, you know. It takes you into the whole realm of soul recycling, doesn't it? The fact that we ourselves experience deja vu from time to time. Annette, Joe, this is what I was literally getting to. She said, what if there's a permanent amount of souls that come and go and it never changes? There is that theory. There is that theory that you're born into, or your soul is created into what's called a soul family. So it's a group of souls that constantly relive, you know, get their memory wiped, come back, but they always slightly change because you're always around the same souls. So for instance, in my previous life, I could have been a father to who is my mum in this life, sort of thing. So it's almost as if your soul was supposed to be where it is. It's the whole thing of, you know, fate and determining your future and stuff like that. So there is that theory. I don't know if I believe in it. I think it's a bit too close to the theory of reincarnation. I believe in old souls. I believe I'm an old soul. I had a past life regression reading. I think I said it before, from a medium, and it turns out that I was a court jester, which makes a lot of sense, really, if I'm honest with you. I'm a bit of a joker, so that does make what's the next time? Even slavery over and over again, trapped in a cycle. Yeah, a constant cycle where the souls are recycled, in the sense of the spirit part, like the body passes away, the soul is then wiped of its memories and then put back into another. you know, and this is where the theory of deja vu gets, you know, when you go to a certain place and you feel at home there, or you've been there before. That's the whole thing of soul memories. And, you know, when you feel attracted to somebody, or you feel like that, you've known them for a long time, it's another form of deja vu, it's another form of soul memory, because that's within your soul family. Depending on what you believe in, you know, there's a lot of religions out there that don't believe in that. I mean, if you look at the Gnostics religion itself, that is the backwards version of the Catholic belief system, and they don't believe in any sort of soul recycling whatsoever. I do believe Scientologists don't believe in that as well. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not really read up on the whole Scientology. I know Tom Cruise is a Scientologist. That's about it, really. That's about as far as my knowledge goes when it comes to Scientology. But there's, I can't remember what it's called. There's a book that I have indoors within my library by a psychiatrist called Carl Jung. He was extremely famous because he used to deal with schizophrenia and... Hi, Kelly, how you doing? He used to deal with things like schizophrenia and mental illnesses, and he actually suffered with it himself, so he saw it from both perceived sides. And there is an actual book where he talks about deja vu and soul recycling. And he explores the fact of that this could be true, but it could also be a form of subconscious memory imagination. So it's almost like a subconscious part of our brain are making these memories up. Oh, hello. You go back out now. Okay. Cat. Black cat. Bye, Jen. So, yeah, he talks about the fact that they are subconscious make these memories up because of the capacity of what our brains can do. So, for instance, I think it's something, we only use 8% of our brain power or something silly like that. So we don't actually have the ability to control the subconscious part of our brains. So he talks about, because we don't have the ability to control that, these soul memories are almost made up by us, by our own subconscious imagination. But yeah, it's a really interesting read. Carl Jung is definitely one of them people where I could read his books over and over again, because it's very detailed, but it's written in a way in which you can understand. If anyone ever wants a book to read, check out some of Carl Jung stuff. Really, really good. He was a psychologist that looked at things from the paranormal perspective, but at the same time suffered with mental illness himself. So it's a good read. So yeah, guys, if you've got any questions, don't forget to put them up there in the chat room, and I will get to them. So yeah, hi Kelly, welcome along. How you doing? What else is there happening this week? I'm trying to think. I've been reading a lot of stuff this week about. There's been a lot of stuff about. How do I put this in a way where I don't get us kicked off Facebook? Obviously, we know that the JFK files will be declassified very soon. I think it's around about 4.5 months. So there's a lot of speculation going around about the whole JFK assassination. Now, there has been evidence. I don't know if it was released on like a Joe Rogan show or something, but there was evidence showing, I can't remember his name, but he was talking about the shot come from inside the car. And that seems to be doing the rounds a lot online at the moment. So yeah, it's definitely a puzzling one. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to talk to you guys about. So if you have any questions, hit them up there in the chat room, and I'll get to them and see if we can run this on. If not, I'm going to jump off and jump in the shower because I got back from the gym and I'm really smelly. So I'm not going to lie. Yeah. I don't know if Sunday's show is going to be on this week. I do know that Ben and Lou are at an event, so I'm not sure if Sunday's show is going to be on. So keep your eyes peeled on the page to check that one out. I know Scarlet Witch is going to be on for a few shows due to personal problems. So that will be continuing once she comes back. As soon as we get the confirmation for the new merchandise, which, by the way, looks amazing, I'll be putting a link up, or Lou will be putting a link up on our page to that one. We found somewhere where the printing is a lot better quality. The designs are a lot better. It's not me designing them anymore. It's actually designed by a professional. And just the overall general way in which the merchandise is made is a hell of a lot better. And it's a little bit cheaper as well, which is even better. Because if we can save you guys some money, that's great. It's great news all around. So there you go. Right. So it looks like we haven't got any questions. So I'm going to end the show on an early one this week. Once again, thank you all for locking in. We shall be back live. Hopefully, all three of us will be back next Friday. I hope so, anyway. And we will do something. Nico's just popped up. I don't know if it's a question, but I find it very interesting that there's this superstition that it's bad to whistle at night. The crazy thing is that all around the world, they believe in this. Yeah. I've heard of this before, but I've heard of it from an Irish tradition. And the reason why you don't whistle at night is because it would entice, supposedly, the noise in itself would entice spirits to the house. It's almost like putting a light bulb on in a completely dark room and having the moths attract to it. Don't forget, Ireland is completely steeped in superstition, and it does make perfect sense. But if you also look at it, maybe looking at it in that sense, I mean, I've seen a lot of paranormal teams that do the whole copy my whistle, and they'll whistle. Superstition is one of them crazy things where it has, the way to put it is that every single thing that we know about nowadays is based partly on truth and partly on lies. Even anything down to history and so on and so forth. There is always, as I've been told by someone, there's always three sides of the story. There's your side, there's the other person's side, and there's the actual story. So a lot of superstitions are made up based around truth, but they're almost fabricated and made more. So what you'll find is someone whistled of a night time and something bad happened to them, and then this developed into a massive Chinese whispers where it went round and round and round, and now the whole world believes you should whistle at night. I've whistled at night. I'm still here. So I don't know when it comes to that superstition. I know the most famous superstition I know is you don't walk under a ladder and you don't cross on the stairs. That's probably two of the major superstitions that I know of. But yeah, it is fascinating, Nico. It's definitely one to look into. I'll have to have a read up on that and get back to you on that one. So I will do that. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna run. I'm gonna go and jump in the shower. It's been an amazing show tonight. Thank you all for locking in. Don't forget, keep your eyes peeled to see if Sunday's show will be live. From me here in the studio, Lord Damon of the Realm, it's bye from me and bye from nobody else. And remember, guys, there's no other explanation. There is always the other dimension. Have a great weekend, and I